And we are going to continue the conversation about Village Connector Community as we talk about the foundational pillars that make up the community or that support the community, because that's really foundational pillars do. So we talked about two: education, which was sort of professional development or personal development, health and wellness, and there was a third pillar, and it was about community economics. Talk about that.
This is another good one. I think that we've picked some really good areas to focus on, especially for highlighting the power of bringing people together in harmony. A lot of our philosophy comes out of the Napoleon Hill principle of the mastermind group, where Dr. Hill talks about people coming together in perfect harmony for a definite purpose, and how the energy that gets created from that accomplishes so much more than we could ever do individually. And I express this a lot in my discussion about what Village Connector is all about when I talk about the fact that many hands make light work. If everyone does a little, no one has to do a lot. And that's really what makes the evolution of humanity actually a pretty simple thing to advance if we could all decide to work together. And so again, community economics is a great place to see results with that. So we made the third pillar our community economics pillar. Now, as I said earlier, there's a lot of, it's very difficult to draw a complete line, a bright line between each of these. Because community economics is also about business and about career and about professional development, as is personal development. But for our purposes, we're going to talk about community economics in the context of understanding how we can support the efforts or the desire for local communities to be self-supporting prosperity centers. And what I mean by that is at every level, where within your community you can find virtually every resource you need to live a high quality of life, whether that's educational resources, whether it's social support resources, and I'm not talking about government provided programs. I'm talking about people supporting each other. So for example, we usually start our discussion about the community economics program with helping business owners and consumers to understand that they are not adversaries. A lot of times business owners are not truly appreciative of what it means to have a customer, and customers don't really understand the impact that spending their dollars in their local community has, not just on the business they're patronizing, but on everything that happens for them and their neighbors as well.
That's true, because we're so price oriented. We're so, we're going to go to the big superstore rather than patronize our local vendors.
The small locally owned business. So here's where, you know, our education process comes in. And I don't want to go into too much detail, but I'm just going to give a quick example.
Okay.
If you shop at a local business, a grocery store, that grocery store owner is a good chance lives in that community. And when you support his business, he now, or her business, they now have the opportunity to be able to go to the movies, go to a restaurant, or support other businesses. That movie owner or that other business, the restaurant, they buy things in the community as well. They may be hiring a babysitter that in turn is, you know, watching their kids while they're serving the grocery owner that came to eat at their restaurant. And that restaurant owner or that babysitter might be also buying at the local coffee shop. So if the coffee shop owner chooses to buy something off of a e-commerce giant store, that dollar leaves our community.
Okay.
And if that dollar leaves our community, then that means that the grocery store owner doesn't have the dollar to give to the restaurant owner. The restaurant owner doesn't need a babysitter now. Now the babysitter's got to leave the community to go find a job.
Oh wow, it's like a whole ecosystem.
Exactly. It's a domino effect that we don't often think about when we quickly make the decision to buy outside of our community. When the dollar leaves our community, it leaves your pocket, but it also leaves the pockets of all of your neighbors. When we can reverse that trend and get people from a mindset standpoint to say, the few pennies that I'll save by buying outside of the community, it's worth it for me to spend that because of the other benefits of keeping those dollars flowing here, wherever here might be for them. And that's just one example. I mean, there's lots of examples in terms of the Community Economics Initiative. For example, there's a lot of opportunity for people to save money by shopping locally if they understood a few simple principles about how they spend their money. A lot of people think they're saving money on e-commerce, but when you think about the delay associated with getting the products and services that you want, having to ship them back when there's something wrong as opposed to being able to take them right back to the store. You know, we're teaching local business owners how to use local delivery to make it possible to deliver within hours instead of within days. You know, little things like that that don't automatically dawn on people. We're taking it upon ourselves to introduce the communities to these principles that sometimes would just be kind of out there as opportunities unfulfilled, I'll say.
And I'm thinking, because we talked about education and personal development before, the thought that crosses my mind is that's fine for people who understand that connection, but sometimes you need to teach some of the local vendors in order to open up their minds so that they do grasp that. So there's some education involved, which comes
Absolutely.
back to the education piece.
And that is why you can't separate these things out into a vacuum. They're not self-sustained or self-contained boxes. They're all interrelated. And you raised a good point there, because a lot of business owners, again, they think that they've gone through all the education that they need to be successful in their businesses, and they don't realize how much opportunity they leave on the table by being closed-minded. And anyone can be this way. It's not just business owners. It's not, it's not limited to any one individual or any type of individual. But here's the point. When we are able to embrace the concept that we don't have all the answers, it puts us on a search to continue to find the ones we don't have. And that's another mindset shift. People need to understand that if they open their minds to understanding what's out there for them, that there may be new ways of doing things. I mean, look at the internet, how that's created a completely different communications infrastructure for us that didn't even exist at the time most business owners opened their businesses, especially if there have been family businesses passed down through generations and stuff like that. You've got to be willing to factor that into what you're doing today, because the way your grandfather or your great-grandfather built the business is not the way you're going to build it today. So on that note, one of the things that we're looking at supporting is teaching people who live in local communities how to reinvest not just their dollars in purchasing as consumers, but as you know, reinvesting in businesses within their communities, having an ownership interest in businesses in their communities. So this community economics thing is a massive opportunity for people who will open their minds to receive the mindset shift that they need to fully embrace it and bring it to fruition. So again, the ecosystem of the community, that's why Village Connector Community is probably the perfect label for what we're doing, is we're connecting people within the village so that collectively everyone achieves more without having it be mandated by government or bureaucratic entities or whatever. This is something we do voluntarily because it just makes sense.
Yeah. That's great. And so I'm wondering how in the world, so we're talking about what Village Connector Community will do and can do, but how? What are the tools, what's the structure that allows the village to do that?
Well, I alluded to some of that earlier when I talked about how powerful the communications tools that are available to us today are on the internet. So we're using TV studios. We have 2 TV studios and a radio studio right here in Laurel, and these are professional TV. We're producing this TV show in the TV studio, in one of the studios anyway. So we have a professional TV production and radio production environment, just like you would see in a normal network television or cable television network, except that we broadcast on the internet. That's the only difference. Same equipment, same professionals, same everything. And our content is more geared towards helping people to evolve as opposed to simply entertaining them. So we also have a very strong presence when it comes to the social media infrastructure that's in place. We have a Facebook group, Village Connector Community, and we encourage everyone to join the Village Connector Community Facebook group so that they're connected within the village. We welcome every individual that joins into the village as if we were, they were driving across the border into their county or into their city, and we were standing there to greet them. And that's how we feel that neighbors should respond to each other. So we've got the social media communication system. We've got the ability to pre-record content, which is the Village Connector Education Program. And we have the ability to live stream events on Facebook, on Twitter, on YouTube, on Periscope, on all these communications platforms that are available today. It's just amazing how many different ways we have to communicate on people's smartphones, on their computers, text messaging, all these different ways that we have to be in touch and tuned in to the opportunities that exist in our communities and with our neighbors. So that's the infrastructure. We have mastered, one thing I'm very proud of is the level at which we've mastered this technology, not just for ourselves, but for the local business owners. We've got marketing systems that we've put in place to reduce the cost of advertising for local businesses. And if local businesses don't have to pay as much to advertise, they can afford to give better and more frequent deals to local consumers, which means the local consumers save money and have a greater incentive to keep those dollars flowing in their local communities. So the infrastructure, very important. And we've done a mighty job at putting that together. And now we're actually doing a much better job of getting the maximum out of it. You know, you've probably heard it said that I think the scientists have determined that we use less than 10% of our brain power.
Yeah.
And on some days I can see that it's possible that I'm using even less than that. But we need to start maximizing the use of these things. And so personal development is about maximizing your brain power. And the technology tools is about maximizing the ability to communicate.
Okay. Well, you've given us a lot of stuff to think about with how this village will connect and support the community. When we come back, let's talk about sort of what the future holds, but also it would be great to just kind of put it all together. So how does the community come in and take advantage of this? And then how do the services get disseminated or used? So just kind of to wrap up the picture of how this all works.
I'll be happy to do that when we come back.
All righty, and we'll be right back.